హాయ్ హలో నమస్తే వెల్కమ్ బ్యాక్ టు మై ఛానల్ దత్తకీర్తి యూఎస్ తెలుగు వ్లాగ్స్. ఎలా ఉన్నారండి? అందరూ బాగున్నారా? నేను చాలా బాగున్నాను. ఈరోజు నేను ఒక వీడియో చేస్తున్నాను, అది ఉపయోగపడేది. ఏంటంటే యూఎస్లో తల్లిదండ్రులు పిల్లల్ని కొట్టడానికి కొంచెం ఆలోచిస్తారు, ఎందుకు తిట్టడానికి ఆలోచిస్తారు ఎందుకు అనే వీడియో అనమాట. సో ఈ విషయం గురించి తెలుసుకోవడానికి మనం లేసి మ్యామ్ని అడుగుదాం. ఓకేనా? లెట్స్ గెట్ టు ద వీడియో. 갑자기 내게 나타나준 너 난 아무 말도 할 수가 없었지 첫눈에 반한다는 이야기가 యుఎస్లో తల్లిదండ్రులు పిల్లల్ని కొడితే ప్రాబ్లం అవుతుందా? కొంచెం చెప్పగలరా ప్లీజ్?
Okay, so back in the day, way back in the day, people did, beat their kids. But then it came to the point where people were beating their child to death and their child died. And so the government got involved, the police got involved, and basically frowned upon beating your child, even paddling their butt, even doing that when they did something bad. And so what happened was the government got so involved that the children would then say, tell their teacher at school, and then the teacher at the school would then turn them into the government, and then the government would then come take their children away from them and put them in jail. Yeah, so it became a very, very big thing. Lately, I don't see it as much as late, but I mean, people do paddle their kids' butt, and people do, smack them on the mouth when they say something bad or something like that. But it is pretty frowned upon here in America to do that. But I would say, your child does, like if he did something wrong or she did something wrong, they would need to be punished. And a lot of people put them in a corner, make them be quiet away from everybody, or they put them in their room for like 30 minutes, or, depending on their age, they would actually say a certain, like if your child's 5, they'd say, put your child in his room for 5 minutes. If he's 6 minutes. And so until the child calms down. And that is actually.
మనం ఏం చేసినా పేరెంట్స్ కొట్టరు తిట్టరు అంటే పిల్లలు మరి బాగా గొడవ చేస్తారు కదా మేడం?
Okay, trying to follow all that. I would say that you can shout at your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, if they're being bad, even in public, I will shout at my kid.
Okay.
I don't care. Because if my child is misbehaving, that is my responsibility to get them in line and get them in check.
Okay.
Even snatch them over to me, listen to me. I will actually pull them close
Mm-hmm.
and talk to them very quietly,
Mm-hmm.
because then they sort of know, like, this is serious.
Okay.
So shouting is not a big deal. But, I mean, see, it seemed that because people were like, oh, you can't paddle your kid, and oh, you can't smack them on the mouth. People do still do that, but part of the problem is that the child goes to the public school system, where the public school system says that's not okay. And so when the child then goes to school, they tell their teacher, and then the government comes in and they take the child away. It's called foster care, and they remove them from that person because you're not allowed to do that.
Okay.
And so yes, it makes children
Mm-hmm.
who a parent doesn't know how to punish them properly according to American standards. It can make a child act completely crazy and wild and do things because, well, no one's stopping them.
Mm-hmm. నేను ఇక్కడ ఒక విషయం విన్నాను మేడం. ఏంటంటే పబ్లిక్ ప్లేస్లో ఒక పేరెంట్ వాళ్ళ బేబీని కొడుతున్నారనమాట. సో పక్కన చూసిన వాళ్ళు కాప్స్కి ఫోన్ చేసి చెప్తే ఆ పేరెంట్ని కౌన్సిలింగ్కి తీసుకెళ్లారు. ఇలా జరుగుతుందా మేడం? ఇస్ ఇట్ కరెక్ట్ మ్యామ్?
Yeah.
ఓ
Yeah, here in America, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And usually, they get video of it and they kind of run it through it. But in the meantime, before the video's even got and then given to the correct people, they've already taken the parent and basically arrested them.
Okay.
And taken the child away as well.
ఓకే మ్యామ్, నాకు ఒక డౌట్. ఇన్ కేస్ మనం కనుక ఏదైనా టాయ్ వాళ్ళకి నచ్చి కొనిపించకపోతే వాళ్ళు కనుక ఏడిస్తే అప్పుడు కూడా పేరెంట్స్ని తీసుకెళ్ళి కౌన్సిలింగ్ ఇస్తారా? ఎందుకు ఇలా అడుగుతున్నానంటే లాస్ట్ వీక్ నేను సబ్రీష్కి ఒక టాయ్ కొనిపిస్తానని కొనిపించలేదు. సో వాడు బాగా గొడవ చేశాడు. సో ఈ విషయం కనుక సబ్రీష్కి తెలిస్తే నాకే ప్రాబ్లం. కొంచెం చెప్పగలరా?
Usually if the child is just raising a fit because of, they want this toy and they can't have this toy, and the parent like drags them out or, you know, puts them over their shoulder and they walk out. Usually if a child is just crying, the people are not going to call 911.
Oh.
They're going to call 911 when you start hitting them. That's when they're going to call 911.
Okay.
And the reality is if you take your child to a toy store where there's lots of great things, usually you have a conversation with them beforehand. We're going to go in there. I don't want you to touch anything. You know, we're looking for this thing. And so really it has a lot to do with talking to your kid first, letting them know what's going on, preparing them, and telling them, if you start to get upset, we are leaving immediately. And then you're not allowed to go back in and look at all this very nice and cool things. I would say that.
Okay.
When my kids were very young, I would tell them, we're going to go in and you touch nothing.
Okay.
That was my rule. You can look and you can see, but you touch nothing because you're not buying anything. If you were buying something, then you could touch it, but you're not. So no touching anything. That was my first rule for them. But our other rule was, especially if mom and dad are there together, if you start to act too wild or too crazy, me or dad, you pick somebody, are going to take you to the car and you will have to sit in the car. And that's it. And then we will sit in the car. We will not be talking. You will not be playing on a phone. You won't be playing on anything. You will have to sit there. So do you want to go inside and be calm, or do you want to sit in the car? And sometimes you have to bring them out, sit them in the car to make them realize that they cannot get their way.
Okay.
And then once they've calmed down, and you're with them in the car, once they've calmed down, or you tell them, when you calm down, we can go back in together. But again, you are not allowed to touch anything. It's really about, it's kind of like trying to teach, because the reality is the small children, they don't know. They're just pushing all the limits.
Yes.
And a 2-year-old is really pushing a limit. But a 3-year-old, whoa, 3-year-olds really try to, they want to rule over you. They want to be in charge.
Yes.
And it's a process of a series of years of you teaching them that you cannot be in charge. The parent is in charge. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so the reality is it takes a long period of time. Even beating your child and paddling your child, smacking them on the mouth, yelling at them, the reality is that doesn't work for every child.
Yeah.
And so you have to get creative. What does your child really love? If your child really loves TV, you have no TV until tomorrow at 2 o'clock, since it's 2 o'clock. You have to get creative. You have to take things away from a child that they truly want. Because if you say, you know what, I'm going to make you be quiet for 20 minutes. If your child is a quiet child, they're going to be happy with that.
Yeah.
So you have to be selective as to a punishment, you know, that's fitting. And I think a lot of the beating aspect came from parents who got out of control and they beat their child to death, or they left massive bruising or marks. That's a big thing. Leaving a mark when you paddled or hit your child is unacceptable.
Yes.
Once the teacher at school or the principal at school can see that, or a police officer, that's it. Games are off. They're going to take your child from you because they can visually see it.
See it. Yeah.
But you can easily paddle your kid's butt, and you can't even tell.
Yeah.
It's all about, in moderation, keeping the parent in control to calm the child down, but have the child learn the lesson.
Yeah. థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్ లెసీ మ్యామ్. నాకు వచ్చిన డౌట్స్ అన్నీ క్లారిఫై చేశారు. చాలా థ్యాంక్స్ మ్యామ్.
You're welcome. Anytime.
థ్యాంక్ యూ మ్యామ్. సో మేము బ్లెస్సింగ్ బాక్స్లో చరణ్ ఈ క్రీమ్ ఒకటి అండ్ చాక్లెట్, ఈ చాక్లెట్స్ ఒకటి డ్రాప్ చేసాం అనమాట. సో స్కూల్లో ఏమన్నా ఇస్తే వాడికి నచ్చకపోతే తీసుకొచ్చి ఇక్కడ పెడతాడు యాక్చువల్లీ. సో ఈ బ్లెస్సింగ్ బాక్స్లో ఒక్కొక్కళ్ళు ఏవో ఒక టిన్ని ఇలా తీసుకొచ్చి పెట్టేస్తారు. హోమ్లెస్ పీపుల్స్ ఎక్కువ తీసుకుంటారు వీటిని. అదే చరణ్ అక్కడ యాక్చువల్లీ ఇక్కడ డ్రైవింగ్ ప్రాక్టీస్ చేస్తారు, అందుకని ఆ కోన్స్ ఉంటాయి అన్నమాట. చరణ్ జాగ్రత్తనా. వావ్, గుడ్ జాబ్ చరణ్. కాళ్ళే పట్టిందా? పద. యాక్చువల్లీ నేను కూడా స్కూటీ తీసుకొచ్చాను కదా, ఇప్పుడు వెళ్ళాలి. అసలు ఎలా వెళ్తామో ఏమో. అమ్మా పర్లేదు, బాగానే వెళ్తుందా. అమ్మా ఇది నన్ను మోయడం కన్నా నేను మోయడం ఎక్కువైపోయింది.
అంత సీన్ లేదు, కాళ్ళు చేతులు ఎరగొడతాను.
అది సంగతి. హాయ్. సో ఇదన్నమాట ఈ వీడియో నచ్చినట్లయితే ప్లీజ్ లైక్, షేర్ అండ్ సబ్స్క్రైబ్ మై వీడియో దత్తకీర్తి తెలుగు వ్లాగ్స్. బాయ్. మళ్ళీ మరొక వీడియోలో మళ్ళీ కలుద్దాం. నమస్తే.